Alex Carter refreshed the payroll app at 7:13 in the morning. He was still in bed, one eye half open, phone brightness too high, rent due in 4 days, credit card payment due in 6, and a group chat already making Friday dinner sound like a test of whether his life was going well. He tapped the screen expecting relief, because payday was supposed to feel like oxygen. Instead, the app punched him in the face with 2 numbers. Gross pay for the period, $2,615. Deposit, $1,618. Alex stared at the screen. Then he did the subtraction. $997. Gone. Not after rent, not after groceries, not after the car payment, not after student loans. Gone before the paycheck ever touched his checking account. $997 had disappeared before Alex even got the chance to decide what kind of adult he wanted to be. And to be clear, that number was Alex's case study number. Your number might be smaller, it might be bigger, but the mechanism is the same. The paycheck arrives already touched, already reduced, already claimed. And the worst part was not that it was illegal. It wasn't. The worst part was not that it was hidden. It wasn't. That was what made it feel colder. His paycheck was not stolen in a dark alley. It was divided in broad daylight. Federal withholding, payroll taxes, state and local taxes, health insurance, dental, vision, retirement. And one little line he barely remembered choosing during onboarding because the benefits portal had too many tabs. Every amount had a name. Every name sounded reasonable, and that was the trap. Modern paychecks are not usually destroyed by one dramatic enemy. They are sliced by normal systems. They are reduced by default settings. They are claimed by forms you clicked through when you were tired. By the time the money arrives, the salary you bragged about is not the money you live on. Alex made $68,000 a year. At least that was the number in his head. When the offer letter arrived, he had read it 3 times. 68,000. It sounded serious. It sounded stable. It sounded like the moment when life should finally stop feeling so tight. He did the quick mental math everyone does with a salary. 68,000 divided by 12. About 5,600 a month. Not rich, but not broke. Not anymore. That was the story. Then payday came. The employer showed one number. The payroll app showed another. The bank account received a third. And Alex's life had not even started billing him yet. This is where most people lie to themselves. They say, I make $68,000 a year. No, that is not the number your life runs on. That number exists in your offer letter. That number exists when you apply for an apartment. That number exists when you tell yourself you should be doing better. But rent does not care about gross income. Your credit card company does not care about gross income. Your grocery bill does not care about gross income. Your life runs on the money that survives. And in Alex's case, $997 was already gone before the race began. Not because Alex was poor. That was the point. He was not poor. He had a real job, a badge, benefits, direct deposit, a company laptop, a retirement account, a calendar full of meetings that somehow multiplied while he slept. He had the kind of life people tell you to build. And still, payday landed like leftovers. Your paycheck does not arrive as freedom. It arrives as leftovers. That sentence felt too harsh. Alex wanted to reject it, but the numbers were sitting on his phone. 2,615, 1,618, 997 missing before deposit. Being paid is not the same as being in control. The first villain seemed obvious. Taxes. That is where most people point first. In Alex's paycheck, about $290 went to federal withholding. About $162 went to Social Security. $38 went to Medicare. About $105 went to state and local withholding. Almost $600 right there. Before food, before rent, before saving, before one dumb purchase, before Alex had done anything except wake up and check an app. This is where weak financial content gets lazy. It turns the story into a tax rant. It yells about theft. It gets political. It gives people an enemy so they never have to inspect the rest of the machine. That is not the point here. Some deductions pay for real things. Some benefits protect you. Some retirement contributions are future money, not wasted money. The problem is not that every line is evil. The problem is that every line is first. That is the brutal part. Alex was not choosing from his full paycheck. He was choosing from what remained after other claims were already paid. Once you see money in that order, you cannot unsee it. The real question is not, how much do you make? The real question is, who gets paid before you do? That question is the beginning of the paycheck autopsy, not a budget, not a motivational speech, an autopsy. Because when a paycheck dies before the month ends, you cannot keep saying, I don't know what happened. You have to open it up. You have to name the wounds. You have to see the order. And the first wound is visible, clean, documented, legal, boring enough that most people ignore it. That is how the system wins. A scary number feels less scary when it is printed in a normal font. $997 sounds aggressive when you say it out loud, but on a pay stub, it looks like administration. That is why Alex almost missed the first lesson. The number his employer sold him was not the number his life received. There is one number your employer shows you. There is another number your life actually runs on. Most people never separate the two. They negotiate the salary. They celebrate the salary. They build an identity around the salary. Then they wonder why their bank account feels like it belongs to someone earning half as much. Alex did exactly that. He did not go insane after getting the job. He did not buy a luxury car. He did not move into a penthouse. He did not start ordering champagne at brunch. His mistakes were more dangerous because they were normal. He moved into a slightly better apartment because he was tired of thin walls and bad plumbing. Rent, $1,675. Not insane for the city, just heavy. He kept his car because the train commute added 40 minutes each way. Car payment, $348. Insurance, $162. Gas and maintenance, never exact but always real. Student loan minimum, $210. Credit card minimum, $95. Phone, $82. Internet, $65. A gym membership, a few streaming services, a delivery membership he forgot he had, cloud storage, a news subscription from a trial that became permanent, a premium music plan. None of it looked like financial violence. That is the trap. The modern cash flow trap does not usually look like stupidity. It looks like adulthood. It looks like convenience. It looks like being busy. It looks like saying, I can afford this, without asking, can my future afford this too? Alex looked back at the deposit. $1,618. Then he opened his banking app. Rent was already scheduled. Car payment was scheduled. Student loan autopay was scheduled. Credit card minimum was scheduled. Phone and internet was scheduled. Insurance was scheduled. The paycheck had arrived in his account, but spiritually, it was already gone. That is the part the pay stub does not show you. The pay stub shows the first extraction. Your calendar shows the second. The first extraction happens before deposit. The second happens after deposit. And the second one is often more dangerous because you signed for it. You signed when you wanted a better apartment. You signed when transportation felt necessary. You signed when the credit card offered points. You signed when a subscription was only $10. You signed when your old phone felt embarrassing. You signed when work was exhausting and delivery felt like the one small reward you had earned. The system did not need to hide. It had Alex's permission. It had his habits. It had his calendar. And that is the first major twist. Taxes were not the villain. Taxes were only the visible leak. The most dangerous deduction was not printed on the pay stub. It was hidden in fixed obligations, lifestyle creep, debt minimums, subscriptions, payment culture, and behavior. A paycheck is not only attacked by taxes, it is attacked by claims. A claim is any promise your future paycheck has already made. Rent is a claim. A car payment is a claim. Debt minimums are claims. Subscriptions are claims. Insurance is a claim. Convenience can become a claim. Even emotion can become a claim. The Friday dinner you say yes to because you do not want to feel behind. The lunch you order because meal prep felt depressing on Sunday. The coffee you buy because mornings feel impossible. The small purchase after a bad meeting because you needed to feel human again. The upgrade you justify because everyone around you seems to be doing better. Each one reaches into the next paycheck before it arrives. And then people say, I don't know where my money went. Usually that sentence is not true. You know where it went. You just did not want to watch it leave in real time. Alex did not want to watch either. He wanted a simple villain. Taxes were easy to blame. Inflation was easy to blame. His employer was easy to blame. Rent was easy to blame. And to be clear, some of those pressures were real. Prices had gone up. Housing was expensive. Health insurance was confusing. Wages did not always move at the same speed as life. Pretending those forces do not exist is childish. But blaming only those forces is also childish. Because even after the world takes its share, most people keep building a life where everyone gets paid before freedom does. That is the cash flow trap. Money comes in, but it does not stay long enough to become power. It arrives as income, leaves as obligations, and whatever remains gets spent emotionally because the person feels deprived. That last part matters. When Alex saw $1,618 instead of $2,615, he felt cheated. So a $12 lunch did not feel like a mistake. It felt like a small rebellion. A $27 delivery order after work did not feel irresponsible. It felt deserved. Concert tickets on a payment plan did not feel like lifestyle creep. They felt like refusing to let life become nothing but bills. That is how the trap tightens. First, the paycheck gets reduced. Then the bills get paid. Then the person feels poor. Then the person spends to escape the feeling of being poor. Then the next paycheck arrives already wounded. This is not only a math problem, it is a control problem. Control is not measured by salary. Control is measured by how much of your money can still obey you after everyone else has spoken. On paper, Alex had a career. In practice, he had a conveyor belt. Money landed, money moved, money vanished, and he stood beside the belt wondering why he never felt richer. So he made the autopsy cleaner. Gross paycheck, $2,615. Removed before deposit, $997. Deposit, $1,618. Again, not all the missing money was bad. The retirement contribution was not dead. Insurance mattered. Taxes were part of the world he lived in. But cash flow does not ask whether a deduction is morally good or morally bad. Cash flow asks a colder question. Can you use this money today? For Alex, the answer was no. Then the second layer hit. Rent took most of one paycheck by itself. The car took another chunk. Student loans and credit cards took their piece. Phone and internet took their piece. Food took its piece. Subscriptions took small bites. Social life took irregular but heavy bites. Convenience filled the gaps. By the end, Alex did not have a budget. He had a waiting room. Every dollar walked in and sat down until someone called its name. Landlord, lender, insurer, phone company, credit card issuer, streaming service, restaurant, delivery app, gas station, grocery store, past decisions, future anxiety. By the time Alex's own freedom called for $1, the room was empty. Small leaks make this worse because they do not feel worth respecting. A $6 coffee is not the reason Alex was broke. That is another lazy argument. Nobody builds a serious financial strategy by screaming at coffee. But a repeated habit is not just a purchase. It is a subscription without a login. That sounds harmless until it repeats for months without asking permission. Coffee is not the villain. The pattern is the villain. A subscription at $12 is harmless. 5 subscriptions are not. A rideshare because it is raining is harmless. A rideshare habit is not. A credit card balance for one rough month is manageable. A revolving balance becomes a private tax on your past self. People want one big villain. Sometimes that villain is real. But the cash flow trap does not need one villain. It uses accumulation. It uses repetition. It uses delay. It uses your inability to feel the future cost of today's tiny decision. That is why a small leak can beat a decent income. Not because the leak is dramatic, because it is loyal. It shows up every week. It never forgets. Alex was not stupid. He was busy. That matters. Busy people love invisible spending because their attention is already overdrawn. After work, discipline gets expensive. Convenience starts making better arguments. A delivery fee feels like rescue. A subscription feels like simplicity. A minimum payment feels like peace. A slightly higher rent feels like sanity. And every one of them says the same thing. You can deal with the future later, but later is not empty. Later is where your paycheck is going to live. Pause here. Alex has now found 2 owners of his paycheck. Payroll owned the first slice. Fixed bills owned the second. But wave 3 was worse because it did not feel like a bill. It felt like life. That evening, Alex sat in his car for 7 minutes before going inside. Engine off. Laptop bag on the passenger seat. Shoulders heavy in a way sleep did not fix. All day he had answered emails, sat through meetings, fixed problems he did not create, and acted calm while a manager asked for updates on work delayed by someone else's decision. By the time he got home, cooking felt insulting, so he opened a delivery app. The meal was $16, delivery fee $3.99, service fee a little over $2, tip $4, tax total $27.60. Alex hesitated for maybe 3 seconds. Then he tapped order. Not because $27 was nothing, because in that moment, $27 felt cheaper than being a functioning adult for another hour. This is where most advice gets stupid. It says, just cook at home. Fine, correct, also incomplete. Alex did not order food because he lacked the information that cooking was cheaper. He ordered food because his energy had been drained before his money was. That is one of the most ignored parts of the cash flow trap. Your paycheck is not the only thing getting claimed. Your attention is claimed. Your patience is claimed. Your discipline is claimed. Your time is claimed. Then, at the end of the day, the market offers to sell all of it back to you. Too tired to cook? Buy convenience. Too stressed to plan? Buy speed. Too lonely to stay home? Buy a night out. Too insecure to feel successful? Buy status. Too bored to feel alive? Buy entertainment. The system did not need to force Alex. It only needed him tired. He ate the delivery food on the couch. The show he watched was on a streaming service he had signed up for 3 months earlier to watch one series. He had meant to cancel it. He did not. The renewal had hit 2 days before payday. $17.99. He barely noticed it. That was the next punch. The most expensive purchases were not always the ones he loved. They were the ones he forgot. A concert he remembered at least gave him something. A dinner with a close friend had a real place in his life. A tool he used every week might be worth it. But forgotten spending was different. Forgotten spending was money leaving without even buying attention. No joy, no memory, no real decision, just a charge. Subscriptions are dangerous because they turn choices into background noise. First, Alex chose, then he forgot. Then the payment became part of the weather. And once a cost becomes weather, people stop negotiating with it. They just live under it. $12, $17, $9, $39. The numbers look too small to respect. That is why they survive. Nobody builds a financial disaster from one $12 subscription. But a person can build financial fog from 10 small commitments they never audit. Fog is expensive because you cannot fight what you cannot clearly see. Alex found charges he could explain. Then he found charges he had to think about. Cloud storage, a meal delivery membership, an extra streaming service, a premium app he opened twice a month. Not catastrophic, not innocent either. Every automatic payment was a tiny vote against future freedom. That sounds harsh until you ask one clean question. If Alex would not choose the payment again today, why was he still paying it? Because cancellation takes friction. Because he might use it later. Because it is only a few dollars. Because there are bigger problems. That last excuse is how small leaks survive forever. People ignore small leaks because there are bigger problems. Then the small leaks become one of the bigger problems. Now Alex had found 3 owners of his paycheck: payroll, fixed bills, and automatic habits. But the trap still had another layer: debt. He opened the credit card app. Balance: $3,800. Not massive, not tiny, just heavy enough to follow him around. The app did not scream. It did not say, "You are renting your past." It did not say, "Your old stress is charging interest." It said minimum payment, $95, due in 6 days. 95 sounded manageable. That was the trap. Minimum payments make debt look calm. They turn a serious balance into a small monthly inconvenience. They make the fire look like a candle. Alex could pay 95, so he did. Then interest hit. Then a new charge hit. Then the balance barely moved. Then the next month arrived. Another 95. Another claim. Another piece of current income handed to a past version of himself. Debt minimums are not just payments. They are proof that your past self still has access to your current paycheck. Alex had already eaten those meals, already bought those clothes, already covered that emergency, already paid for that trip, but the paycheck was still paying for them. That is why debt feels suffocating. It collapses time. It makes yesterday reach into today. It makes old choices stand beside current bills. And when enough of yesterday is still unpaid, today has no room to breathe. The credit card had once felt flexible. Sometimes it had been useful. But flexibility becomes captivity when the balance stops leaving. Alex had not used the card to buy a mansion. He had used it to smooth over gaps, a rough month, an unexpected expense, a weekend he did not want to miss, a purchase that felt small enough to deal with later, but later had arrived, and later wanted interest. That is the real middle of the trap. Wave 1 took money before payday. Wave 2 claimed money after deposit. Wave 3 drained money through behavior, and debt carried old behavior into the future. Alex was not just paying for this month. He was paying for previous versions of himself that still had a seat at the table. Then came the car. Alex did not hate his car. That made the issue harder. It was reliable, respectable, a few years old, not flashy. When he bought it, the salesperson did not stay on the total cost for long. The conversation moved quickly to monthly payment. Could Alex handle $348? Yes, of course. He had a real salary. He was tired of old car problems. He needed reliability, so he signed. But the car was not $348. That was only the doorway. Insurance came with it. Gas came with it. Maintenance came with it. Registration came with it. Parking came with it. Stress came with it. Transportation is necessary for many people. That is true. But car payment culture hides total cost behind monthly comfort. It asks the weakest question. Can you afford the payment? The stronger question is uglier. How much of your life will this car claim every month? Not just money, work hours, stress, the need to keep earning, the need to stay employed, the need to keep saying yes because the payment does not care if your manager is unreasonable. That is what Alex had missed. The car made him feel stable. It also made his cash flow more fragile. His salary made him look safe. His cash flow made him fragile. That sentence applied to the whole life built around a number that never actually arrived. And then there was the image claim. This one did not appear cleanly in an app. It hid inside pride. Alex did not think of himself as flashy. He was not trying to look rich. He did not wear designer everything. He did not lease a luxury car. He did not post fake success photos online. But he still had an image to maintain. The image of being fine had costs. He said yes to dinners when he wanted to say no. He bought work clothes that made him feel more legitimate. He sent gifts that were slightly more expensive than he could comfortably afford because he did not want to look cheap. He joined trips because missing out felt like falling behind. He upgraded things earlier than necessary because the older version made him feel like his life had not caught up with his salary. That is how looking stable becomes a bill. And this is one of the cruelest money illusions. You can see what people spend. You cannot see what they keep. Looking successful can be the most expensive disguise. Real wealth is usually invisible. It is the money not spent, the balance not carried, the subscription not renewed, the raise not absorbed, the emergency fund sitting there doing nothing. Doing nothing looks boring from the outside, but financially, boring can be power. Alex had been chasing visible adulthood. Not wildly, not stupidly, just enough to keep the trap fed. A better apartment, better meals, better convenience, better social proof, better signals that the salary meant something. The salary became an identity. The identity created expenses. The expenses consumed the salary. That loop is lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep is not one dramatic decision. It is 100 small permissions. What used to be a treat becomes normal. What used to be normal becomes unacceptable. What used to feel expensive becomes just what things cost. Some of it is real need. Some of it is fatigue. Some of it is status. Some of it is fear. Some of it is simply the slow raising of the baseline. The problem was not that Alex wanted a better life. The problem was that he never defined enough. Without enough, every raise becomes an invitation to expand. More income comes in. More life attaches to it. Then the person says, I just need one more raise. But if the pattern does not change, one more raise becomes one more version of the same stress. That was the evidence in Alex's own life. His first job after college paid $47,000. Back then he told himself, if I could just get to 60,000, I would be fine. Then he got to 56, not fine, then 62, still tight, then 68, still checking the bank app before buying groceries. The raises were real, but each raise entered the same broken order, and the order absorbed them. Better apartment, more convenience, better groceries, more social spending, a little nicer lifestyle, a little less shame, a little more pressure. That is why earn more is not a complete answer. Income matters. Pretending it does not matter is nonsense. But income alone does not fix a broken sequence. A person making 45,000 can be trapped. A person making 68,000 can be trapped. A person making 120,000 can be trapped with better furniture, better vacations, a bigger car payment, and a more convincing excuse. The trap scales. That is what makes it dangerous. It does not disappear automatically when income rises. It just gets better clothes. Here is where it gets worse. Alex was not defending only bad decisions. He was defending reasonable ones. That is why the trap had survived. Rent had a defense. At least I live somewhere decent. The car had a defense. I need reliable transportation. Credit card debt had a defense. I had a rough few months. Subscriptions had a defense. It is only a few dollars. Delivery had a defense. I am exhausted. Social spending had a defense. I do not want to disappear from my own life. Every charge had a lawyer. Every habit had a speech prepared. Every obligation had a story that made it sound reasonable. That is why telling people to just spend less usually fails. It ignores what the spending is protecting: status, relief, belonging, convenience, identity, proof that life is improving. People do not only spend because they lack information. Alex knew delivery was expensive. He knew interest was bad. He knew subscriptions added up. He knew he should save more. Knowledge was not missing. A system was missing. Without a system, the paycheck enters a knife fight against mood, fatigue, pride, and convenience. And mood has home field advantage. At 7 in the morning, future-focused Alex wanted to save. At 7 at night, exhausted Alex wanted food delivered. Guess who had the phone in his hand? That is why the repair could not be try harder. Trying harder works on good days. The trap is built for normal days. Normal includes stress. Normal includes fatigue. Normal includes temptation. Normal includes busy weeks. Normal includes the kind of small chaos that makes the easiest option feel like the only option. If a financial system only works when you are motivated, it is not a system, it is a mood. Alex had tried budgets before. He would get angry, open a spreadsheet, create strict rules, feel productive for 2 days, then avoid the whole thing by the weekend. The budget failed because it asked the weakest version of him to make the strongest decisions. That was not discipline, that was bad design. A better system would have to work before he was tired, before delivery sounded like mercy, before the subscription renewed, before the credit card minimum made debt look harmless, before lifestyle had a chance to absorb the raise, before future Alex got pushed to the back again. The paycheck autopsy was no longer only about the $997 gone before deposit. That number was the hook. It was the visible wound. But the deeper damage was the normal life wrapped around the paycheck. Payroll took the first slice. Fixed obligations took the second. Behavior took the third. Debt carried the past. Lifestyle creep absorbed the future. And every piece had an excuse. Money came in twice a month. The problem was that money arrived already surrounded. You are not broke because money does not come in. You are broke because your money already belongs to someone else before it can become freedom. Some of those someone else's are obvious. The government, the landlord, the lender, the insurance company, the credit card issuer. But some are more uncomfortable. The delivery app, the forgotten subscription, the lifestyle you defend, the social pressure you obey, the exhausted version of you borrowing from the future to survive the evening. That does not make Alex stupid, it makes him human. But human defaults are exactly what the modern money system is designed to monetize. Frictionless payments, automatic billing, minimum due, 4 easy payments, free shipping unlocked, one-click checkout, saved card, tap to pay. None of this feels violent. That is why it works. The language around payment has been softened. Nobody says, you are giving away future freedom. The app says, payment successful. The store says, you earned points. The installment plan says, 4 easy payments. Easy for whom? That was the question Alex had never asked. 4 easy payments made the purchase feel smaller, but it did not make his paycheck bigger. It only moved the pain into the future and cut it into pieces small enough to ignore. Payment culture separates the pleasure from the pain. Get the item now, delay the consequence, shrink the monthly number, hide the total, let repetition do the damage. Alex finally saw the pattern. The paycheck was not dying from one wound. It was dying from sequence. First payroll, then bills, then debt, then habits, then emotion. Then maybe, if the month behaved perfectly, future Alex got whatever was left. But life does not behave perfectly. There is always a bill, a repair, a bad day, a dinner invite, a renewal, or a moment when exhaustion wins. Leftover income is not a plan. Leftover income is a fantasy that depends on life staying quiet. Life does not stay quiet. That is when Alex understood the real problem was not only spending, it was order. The wrong things were first, the right things were last. Freedom was last, savings was last, debt acceleration was last, emergency money was last, future Alex was last, and last loses, every time. He did not need a perfect budget, he needed a better money sequence. He did not need another lecture about coffee. He needed to calculate the one number most people avoid, the number that would show how much oxygen was actually left after required claims. His old order had been running his life. Payroll first, bills second, debt third, habits fourth, emotion fifth, future last. That order had produced exactly what it was designed to produce, leftovers. So the question was no longer, where did my money go? That question arrives too late. It stands over the dead paycheck and asks what happened. Alex needed a question that worked before the paycheck died. A colder question, a better question. Who gets paid first? That question sat at the top of Alex's notebook like an accusation. It was the beginning of the paycheck order system. Not because the name sounded clever, because the problem was order. A budget tells your money where it went. A paycheck order tells your money who gets paid first. And whoever gets paid first controls the paycheck. Alex did not need a perfect budget. He did not need a color-coded spreadsheet. He did not need another app that made him feel productive for one weekend and guilty by the next Friday. He needed to change the sequence. On day 1, Alex opened a blank page, not a complicated plan. One page, one question, who gets paid first? Then he started with the number that had fooled him from the beginning, $68,000 a year. First, name the gross number, not worship it, not build an identity around it, just name it. Alex wrote it at the top, gross salary, $68,000. Then he wrote a second sentence under it. This number does not run my life. That sentence did not feel motivational, it felt mechanical. Gross salary was useful for the offer letter, negotiations, apartment applications, and telling himself he should be fine. But it did not buy groceries, it did not pay rent, it did not create breathing room. It was the number before reality touched the money. The employer showed one number, life ran on another. The salary was not exactly a lie, it was incomplete. And incomplete numbers let people build complete lifestyles around partial truth. Alex had been making choices like a $68,000 earner, but he had never checked what number his life actually obeyed. Second, find the true net number, not the salary, not the fantasy, not the quick mental math, the money that actually lands after taxes, withholding, benefits, retirement contributions, insurance, and payroll deductions. For Alex, the gross paycheck was $2,615. The deposit was $1,618. That meant $997 was gone before payday reached him. Again, not all of that money was bad. Some protected him, some went to retirement, some paid taxes, but cash flow was colder than morality. Could Alex use that money today? No. So it was not usable cash flow. He wrote the real number down. True net paycheck, $1,618. Then he wrote the monthly version. 2 paychecks, about $3,236. Not perfect. Some months were different. Some deductions shifted, but it was honest enough to begin. For the first time, he stopped saying, "I make $68,000. He started saying, "My life runs on about $3,200 a month after payroll claims." That sentence sounded worse. Good. A useful number is often less flattering than a fantasy number. Now the paycheck was less mysterious. Still painful, less mysterious. Third, list every fixed claim. Not categories, claims. That word mattered. Categories sound harmless. Claims sound like ownership. A fixed claim is any payment that has already raised its hand before you get to make a fresh decision. Rent, car payment, insurance, student loan minimum, credit card minimum, phone, internet, utilities, commuting, basic groceries, subscriptions, anything that shows up whether Alex is inspired or exhausted. He wrote them slowly. Rent, $1,675. Car payment, $348. Car insurance, $162. Student loan minimum, $210. Credit card minimum, $95. Phone, $82. Internet, $65. Utilities, about $140. Gas and commuting, about $180. Subscriptions he remembered, about $110. Then he found the ones he had forgotten. Extra streaming, cloud storage, meal delivery membership, premium app, software trial, another $46. Not devastating, still a claim. A claim does not have to be huge to matter. It only has to be first. Alex felt defensive while writing the list. Rent is necessary. The car is necessary. Insurance is necessary. Student loans are not optional. Credit card minimum has to be paid. Phone and internet are basically required. Fine, some of that was true. But the paycheck order system was not asking whether every claim was evil. It was asking who already had access. Who is already first in line for my money? The list answered. Almost everyone. Alex was not first. His emergency fund was not first. Debt freedom was not first. Future Alex was not first. Freedom was not first. He was standing at the back of the line holding a paycheck everyone else had already touched. The goal is not to become cheap. The goal is to stop being last in line for your own money. That line hit harder than any budget rule. Alex did not want a smaller life. He wanted a life that was actually his. Fourth, separate survival from lifestyle. This was where the excuses started to lose power. Alex drew 2 columns. Survival, lifestyle. Rent went into survival, but with an asterisk. Shelter was survival. This exact apartment was partly lifestyle. The car went into survival, but with an asterisk. Transportation was survival. This exact monthly cost was partly lifestyle. Insurance went into survival. Student loan minimum went into survival. Credit card minimum went into survival for now. Phone went into survival, but maybe not the plan level. Internet went into survival. Utilities went into survival. Basic groceries went into survival. Gas for work went into survival. Streaming went into lifestyle. Meal delivery membership went into lifestyle. Most restaurant spending went into lifestyle. Convenience went into lifestyle. Upgrades went into lifestyle. Some social spending went into lifestyle. This did not mean lifestyle was bad. That mattered. A life with no pleasure is not freedom. It is a financial prison with a better savings rate. That was not the goal. The goal was not to remove joy. The goal was to stop confusing comfort with oxygen. When something is a need, you obey it. When something is a choice, you can negotiate. Alex did not have to cancel every lifestyle expense. He had to stop letting lifestyle cut ahead of freedom automatically. Fifth, calculate real free cash flow. This was the number most people never calculate. Not salary, not gross pay, not net pay, not the bank balance on payday. Real free cash flow. The money left after payroll deductions, fixed bills, debt minimums, and true survival costs, before emotion and convenience start bidding for it. This number tells you how much oxygen your life actually has. Alex did the math slowly. Monthly true net income, about $3,236. Required claims and survival costs. Rent, car, insurance, debt minimums, utilities, phone, internet, commuting, basic groceries. The total was painful. Around $2,900 depending on groceries and utilities. That left roughly $300 of real free cash flow. $300, not $3,000. Not the feeling of a $68,000 salary. $300 of oxygen before the month started improvising. Now everything made sense. A few delivery orders could crush it. One dinner-heavy weekend could crush it. One annual bill could crush it. One car repair could erase it. One emotional spending week could put the credit card back in charge. Alex had not been weak. He had been operating with almost no margin. His salary made him look safe. His cash flow made him fragile. That number hurt his ego, but it rescued his thinking. Now he could see the actual size of his financial life. Not the version in the offer letter, not the version in his head, the real one. That was month 1. No magic, no fake transformation, just exposure. He had named the gross number, found the true net number, listed the claims, separated survival from lifestyle, calculated the oxygen number, and the oxygen number was too small to keep pretending. The next move had to change the order. 6th, pay freedom before comfort. Not after comfort, not after delivery, not after restaurants, not after the month behaves. Before. Because if your future only gets what is left, your future will always be underfunded. Alex did not start with a heroic number. That would have been fake. This is where people sabotage themselves. They get angry, then make a dramatic promise. I will save $1,000 a month. I will never order food again. I will crush all debt immediately. I will become a totally different person by Monday. No, that is not a system. That is financial adrenaline. Adrenaline fades. Alex needed a number small enough to survive real life, but meaningful enough to change the order. He chose $75 per paycheck. Not impressive, not dramatic, but first, that changed everything. On payday, $75 moved automatically into a separate emergency savings account. Not manually, not when he remembered, not after checking if the month looked safe, automatically. At first it felt almost pointless. Then Alex realized almost pointless was still better than zero. And zero had been his old system. You do not fix a stolen paycheck by hoping next month feels different. You fix it by changing who touches the money first. He also added $25 per paycheck above the credit card minimum. Again, not heroic, but automatic. He was not trying to become perfect. He was trying to make freedom harder to skip. Now the paycheck changed. Not because Alex earned more, because fewer people got there first. The emergency fund got there before takeout. Debt acceleration got there before random shopping. Future Alex moved up in line. For the first time in months, Alex saw money leave his paycheck and felt relief instead of loss. Because that money had not disappeared. It had changed sides. It was no longer working for a landlord, or a lender, or an app, or a restaurant. It was working for oxygen. By month 2, the emergency account had $450. That was not wealth, but it was not nothing. Before, money sitting in checking felt available. Money sitting in a separate account felt different. Not because the dollars were magical, because the label changed the behavior. This money was not extra, it was oxygen, and oxygen was not for random spending. The credit card balance also started moving differently, not fast, but visibly. Debt survives on avoidance. Alex was no longer avoiding it. Motivation had never given him proof. The new order did. 7th, cut one invisible leak every 30 days. 1, not 20. Not a full personality transplant. 1 leak. Alex started with delivery. Not because delivery was evil, because the order history was obvious. It was repeated, emotional, expensive, and often not even satisfying. He did not ban delivery forever. That would have turned the plan into punishment. He created friction. Before, delivery was too easy. Phone, app, saved address, saved card. 20 minutes later, food. So he made the cheaper option easier and the expensive option slower. On Sunday, he bought backup meals. Nothing impressive. Eggs, soup, rice, rotisserie chicken, pasta, frozen vegetables. Food that required almost no thinking. Then he removed the saved card from the delivery app. Not the app, just the saved card. Now ordering required standing up, finding the wallet, typing the number, and staring at the total long enough to feel it. That tiny friction changed the behavior. Not every time, but often enough. The first month, delivery spending dropped by about $120. He did not become a monk. He still ordered twice. But he stopped letting exhaustion spend with one tap. That was the win. Not perfection. Reduced access. The next month, he cut subscriptions. He did not spend 3 hours optimizing everything. He asked one question. Would I choose this again today? If the answer was no, it was gone. Extra streaming, meal delivery membership, premium app, trial that had become a bill. Gone. About $50 freed. Again, not life-changing by itself, but it was another claim removed. The month after that, he attacked buy now, pay later. Those little payments had made his bank account feel booby-trapped. A charge here, another there. One he forgot. One he expected. None of them huge. Together, they made the month unpredictable. So Alex made a rule. If a non-essential item could not be paid for in full, he did not buy it yet. Not because every payment plan is evil, because his paycheck already had too many people standing in line. By month 3, the system was no longer theory. It was visible. Emergency savings grew. Credit card balance fell. Delivery spending dropped. Subscriptions shrank. Small payments stopped multiplying. The paycheck still had deductions. Rent still existed. The car still cost money. Life was not fixed. But the paycheck no longer entered a room with no rules. It entered an order. And in that order, freedom was no longer begging at the end. It was standing closer to the front. 8th, rebuild the paycheck order until freedom gets paid first. This was not a one-time move. It was the new operating system. The old order had been brutal. Payroll claims first, fixed bills second, debt minimums third, habits fourth, comfort fifth, future last. The new order started to look different. Payroll claims still happened. Some wave 1 deductions were unavoidable. But after that, Alex took control. Survival, then automatic freedom, emergency fund, debt acceleration, then planned lifestyle, then flexible spending, then upgrades only if the oxygen number survived. That order changed the psychology of spending. Before, Alex spent and hoped he had enough left. Now he protected freedom first and spent from what was honestly available. That difference sounds small. It is not. When freedom is paid first, spending becomes cleaner. Alex could order food without the same guilt if it came from planned spending. He could go to dinner without silently wondering whether rent was threatened. He could buy something fun without pretending it was a need. He could say no without feeling like a failure. Because the paycheck had a hierarchy. A hierarchy protects you from your mood. The point is not to turn life into a machine. The point is to stop letting other people's machines beat yours. Everyone else had automated their claim on Alex's money. Now Alex automated his claim too. By month 6, nothing dramatic had happened from the outside. Same apartment, same car, same job, same salary, same phone. No beach photo, no millionaire transformation. But inside the numbers, the pressure had changed. Emergency fund, over $1,000. Credit card balance, meaningfully lower. Delivery spending, controlled. Subscriptions, cleaner. Payment plans, stopped. Panic, lower. Margin, higher. Modest progress is still progress. The cash flow trap was built quietly. It usually breaks quietly too. The real difference showed up during a car repair. A warning light came on. The bill was $380. 6 months earlier, that would have been a credit card problem. This time, it was annoying, not catastrophic. Alex paid from emergency savings, then rebuilt it. That was the first moment he understood what borrowing money actually does. Borrowing money turns crisis into inconvenience. A tire replacement becomes annoying, not devastating. A medical bill becomes unpleasant, not a spiral. A late reimbursement becomes irritating, not panic. A job scare becomes serious, not paralyzing. That is what freedom looks like at the beginning. Not luxury, not flexing, not some fantasy of never working again. Just fewer emergencies becoming debt. By month 12, Alex was not rich. That matters. A fake story would make him rich too quickly. This is not that story. He still had bills. He still had payroll deductions. He still had rent. He still had a car payment. He still had days where delivery sounded better than cooking. He still had friends making plans that cost more than he wanted to spend. He still had old habits trying to return. But he was no longer last in line for his own money. That was the transformation. Not wealth, command. He had more breathing room, less panic, less debt pressure, more awareness, more margin, and more money serving priorities before the world could absorb it. Payday felt different now, not because the deposit was suddenly massive, it was not. Not because the $997 had vanished as a problem, it had not. Money still left before he saw it. Taxes still existed. Benefits still reduced the paycheck. Payroll still took wave 1, but wave 1 no longer owned the whole story. Alex had learned to negotiate wave 2 and wave 3. Fixed bills could be questioned. Lifestyle could be separated from survival. Debt could be attacked. Subscriptions could be audited. Convenience could be made less automatic. Emotional spending could lose direct access. Future money could move earlier. That is how a paycheck stops arriving as leftovers. Not all at once. Paycheck by paycheck. The first time Alex opened the payroll app, he felt cheated. Now he felt alert. Different feeling. Cheated means powerless. Alert means ready. He could not rewrite the tax code. He could not wish rent lower. He could not undo every past decision instantly. But he could decide who got paid before comfort. He could decide old habits did not get to vote forever. He could decide a subscription had to earn its place. He could decide a credit card minimum was not enough. He could decide emergency money was not dead money. He could decide looking stable was less important than becoming stable. That was control. Not total control. Real control. The kind normal people can actually build. That is the difference between a paycheck that traps you and a paycheck that becomes a way out. The trapped paycheck arrives with no order. It gets reduced, it gets claimed, it gets spent, it gets regretted. The controlled paycheck arrives with a sequence. Reality first, survival next. Freedom early, debt attacked, lifestyle chosen, leaks removed, raises protected, oxygen expanded. That is not glamorous, but neither is panic. And panic is far more expensive. Your financial life is not shaped mainly by what you understand during a moment of motivation. It is shaped by what happens automatically when you are tired, busy, stressed, proud, lonely, bored, and tempted. If every automatic system around you gets paid before freedom, you will feel broke even with money coming in. If freedom becomes automatic too, the trap starts losing its grip. That is why the paycheck order system is simple, but not easy. Simple means you can understand it. Not easy means your old life will fight back. The apps, cards, payment plans, work stress, social pressure, and old habits will still try to pull you back. That is why the system has to happen before the negotiation, before Friday, before fatigue, before the old story says, you deserve this. Maybe you do deserve it, but your future deserves funding too. And if your future is always last, your future will always be weak. Freedom is not built from leftovers, it is built from priority. The first paycheck Alex repaired did not make him wealthy, it made him honest. The first automatic transfer made him first. The first cancelled leak did not change his life, it changed his direction. The first month with breathing room did not solve every problem. It proved the trap could be weakened. And proof matters. Because once you see the paycheck obey a different order, financial stress stops feeling like destiny. You stop calling every obligation normal. You stop letting comfort spend money before freedom sees it. You stop mistaking a salary for control. You stop believing that looking fine is the same as being safe. You start asking the question that cuts through every excuse. Who gets paid first? If the answer is everyone but you, do not be surprised when the paycheck feels like leftovers. If the answer begins to change, the whole life begins to change. Quietly at first. A little more oxygen, a little less panic, a little less debt, more distance between problem and crisis, more future that belongs to you. That is how normal people build power. Not by waiting for a perfect salary, not by hating taxes, not by cutting every small joy, not by pretending discipline will be strong every night when they are tired and hungry. They build power by designing the paycheck before the world spends it for them. So yes, Alex's original shock was real. $2,615 gross, $1,618 deposited, $997 gone before he even saw it. Legal, visible, normal. But the biggest leak was not only taxes. The biggest leak was the normal order around the paycheck. The employer showed one number, life ran on another. The number that mattered was real free cash flow. And the solution was not shame, it was order. Name the gross number, find the true net number, list every fixed claim, separate survival from lifestyle, calculate real free cash flow, pay freedom before comfort, cut one invisible leak every 30 days, rebuild the paycheck order until freedom gets paid first. That is the paycheck order system, not a stricter budget, a better sequence. Because being paid is not the same as being in control. You are not broke simply because money does not come in. You are trapped because too many claims reach the paycheck before freedom does. Owned by payroll claims, owned by fixed bills, owned by debt, owned by subscriptions, owned by convenience, owned by status, owned by exhaustion, owned by old decisions, owned by a version of normal that never asked whether you wanted freedom first. Your paycheck does not arrive as freedom, it arrives as leftovers, but it does not have to stay that way. The moment you change who gets paid first, your paycheck stops being a trap and starts becoming a way out.